Earlier I spoke to Susannah from financial services company Hargreaves Lansdown.
It is a very significant move, actually the first of its kind for a water company, and it just shows how seriously Ofwat is now taking the precarious situation of Thames Water. We just heard earlier this week that the company was able to tap funding for another 11 months, but obviously the clock is ticking and that reservoir of available cash is shrinking fast. Now, there had been high hopes that its investors, including Canadian pension fund and sovereign wealth funds, China and also the Middle East, would actually stump up more money, more longer-term funding, but they held back because there had been this row really with the regulator over just to what extent bills could rise, how much money they could get from customers to enable them to invest in repairing the infrastructure that it so badly needs, but also shoring up its financial situation.
The water companies are all meeting with the new Labour government currently. Is this regime that the Thames Water system is under likely to be a bit of a test case for the other companies?
Well, yes, and we know as well that South East Water is facing financial difficulties as well. The other listed water companies are in better shape, but the bosses of all the water companies are meeting with the government. It really wants to try and assess just how fragile other companies are, because there's a massive public outcry over the levels of raw sewage being pumped into the rivers and seas across the UK. The infrastructure is creaking. There hasn't been enough investment. The listed water companies have been under more scrutiny. They have to, of course, publish their quarterly results. They come under a lot more scrutiny. Those that aren't listed, it seems as though there has been a lack of transparency, and they've been highly criticised for allowing debt piles to build up while they've been taking big dividends out of the companies.
How much of the problems facing Thames Water and other indebted water companies is actually about greed and keeping investors happy at the expense of waterways and the consumer?
Yes, they have been highly criticised for the amount of dividends paid out over the years and the lack of investment in infrastructure. And this is why we are currently at this situation where customers are facing increases in their bills. The Labour government said during the campaign, when the MPs were out campaigning, that they were going to get tougher on the water companies. They were going to stop the number of bonuses that chief executives and other executives could get, particularly if their firms were shown to have been consistently leaking sewage into the waterways. It is a very, very difficult situation, though, for the government to deal with, because on one hand, it doesn't want to renationalise these companies. That would be a huge bill for the government to take on. So this is why Ofwat is putting forward this kind of oversight turnaround regime, and we could see the likes of Thames Water being broken up into a number of separate companies, and even potentially parts of the business being listed to try and build up that funding, which is so crucially needed.